I'm here with Gabriele Gorelli, Italy's first master of wine. And Gabriele, it is World Lambrusco Day. We're in the Eiffel Tower in Paris. What's the reasoning for doing World Lambrusco Day, celebrating it here instead of in Emilia-Romagna?
Well, actually, the first time World Lambrusco Day was on 2 years ago, it was actually celebrated in Emilia-Romagna. Some people even told me that Australia even had its own Lambrusco Day by an importer that sort of developed it like 10 years ago. But, you know, Lambrusco is an iconic wine. And the reason why we are sitting here at the first floor of the Eiffel Tower is that it is one of the most iconic buildings ever. And it makes a lot of sense to have Lambrusco here, because internationally wise is an event that it's loud, but at the same time, back in 1500s, there were sound export market from the Emilia-Romagna to Paris, and that export market was not taxed in full, but just half, to promote this commerce of Lambrusco going to Paris. So I think now, after 500 years, it makes a lot of sense to be sitting here in the Eiffel Tower.
Absolutely. And we talk about Italy being such a regionally diverse country. And so let's talk a little bit about Emilia-Romagna, because in so many ways, Emilia-Romagna is the gastronomic and cultural heart of Italy. I mean, Parmigiano Reggiano, Balsamico di Modena, tortellini, but also Ducati, Ferrari, Maserati, Pavarotti, Fellini. I mean, there's so many aspects of Italian culture that are associated with Emilia-Romagna.
Absolutely.
Why do you think it's taking so long? Because I mean, Lambrusco has been around for centuries.
Yes.
What has led to this resurgence and this interest in the rediscovering of Lambrusco?
Yeah. So let's put it that way. I think Emilia-Romagna is a scaled-down version of Italy diversity, because you have pretty much everything in a region that has two souls, as the name suggests. So Emilia and Romagna, the first on the western side and the second on the eastern side. These two souls give birth to Italy's, as you said, most important gastronomic signatures, but at the same time, there's the Motor Valley, there's a great affection to everyday life at the utmost pleasurable sort of living, and that is testified by the fact that people are really enjoying themselves. And I come to the last part of your question, saying that I think Lambrusco has been around for centuries now, but you know, as all the wines that are present in significant volumes around the world, they go into a sort of life cycles that can be sinusoidal. And it makes a lot of sense to giving an impulse to a life cycle of a certain product, especially at the moment that we are sort of switching the focus from the actual glass of wine to what is around this glass, and that is the story of Lambrusco. Lambrusco talks about where it comes from. Lambrusco parla italiano, talks Italian, and that's part of the story, and it's a strong statement Lambrusco does. It's rediscovering Lambrusco as a wine that used to have a mixed reputation around the world because of the volume, because of the market, because of the natural adaptability of a classic product over time to consumers. But now there's an occasion. I mean, we have people talking more and more about pet nuts. Lambrusco is the original pet nut. Traditional methods as well are growing in the region, but there's this resurgence from the early 2000s that brings us nicely made traditional method, and also the Charmat method as well. I mean, we have a Prosecco that is going beyond any barrier of volume reached and market penetrated. But Lambrusco as well has its ability to be unique by the color, by the style, by the full set, an array of variety that compose the Lambrusco itself. It makes a lot of sense to see again and to check what has Lambrusco been doing in these last years and what has Lambrusco to offer to us nowadays.
And I think too, people are starting to understand that Lambrusco itself is not a grape; it's a family of
Exactly.
grapes, and so within that, you really do have a rainbow.
Yeah.
In terms of styles, in terms of so much different character in Lambrusco. Alberto Medici from Medici Armate said to me years ago that he thought there was two things that really helped to bring this attention back to Lambrusco. He said one was in the mid-2000s, there was an article in the New York Times that brought some attention to it. And then he said in 2010, Gambaro Rosso gave Tre Bicchieri
Yes.
to a Lambrusco, which is the first time.
Yes.
But I think with this rediscovering and reinterest in Lambrusco, it really does follow, I think, how the interest in Italian wine in general has increased over the past 2 decades.
Exactly, exactly. You know, we're in Paris. In Paris, it's a city that nowadays demands more and more Italian wine. You have to know that in October, I think, November possibly at the latest, the chain Signor Vino will open in Paris. And I spoke with the general manager and I told him, I think there wouldn't be a better timing because this city is looking for Italian wines because French people, which are very well trained and educated in wines, understood that Italian wines have their own message, have their own personality, can be very elegant, can be very peculiar, and can really bring to a table for a reasonable amount of price. That's another story, but it's part of the process. They can bring Italianity to France. Also, yesterday we had dinner to a fantastic Michelin-starred Italian restaurant, the Carpaccio, here in Paris. And it's a growing attitude of both people coming from abroad, both people from the city, to go to Italian restaurant in Paris. It's, I don't want to say a switch, but I think it's a nice level of sharing culture and attitude for restoration.
Right.
Why not?
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit specifically about some of the main Lambrusco varieties,
Yes.
because I think that's where people have really started to become so interested.
Yeah.
There's an Italian restaurant back in Western Canada that about 7 or 8 years ago, they were doing 3 different Lambruscos by the glass.
Wow.
And because they wanted to showcase the fact that
That there is
they're
diversity.
so different, right?
Yes.
But so let's talk about Sorbara first, because I think Lambrusco di Sorbara is a variety that confuses people sometimes a little bit.
Yes, yes. We had the opportunity to go inside Lambrusco di Sorbara pretty badly tonight because we had, out of 14 wines, we had almost 7 that were based on Sorbara. Sorbara is in the Modena province, in the middle of the Modena province. So out of the 2, Reggio Emilia and the Modena provinces that produce Lambrusco, the eastern part is Modena, and in the heart of Modena you find Sorbara. So it is a variety that always has very low pH, very high acidity, very crunchy fruit, and more on the red side of the spectrum of the fruit, and it's also less colored than the other Lambrusco and more vivacious, more vivid in the style, and therefore is the one that is most adaptable to producing sparkling wine, even from traditional method or ancestral method, because of the low pH, because of this idea of having crunchy fruit that is pretty proper when you're doing a vin clair, so a base for sparkling. And it really has this ability to sort of arrive to the consumer saying, firstly, I'm a Sorbara, then I'm that style of Sorbara. Because, you know, Lambrusco is a universe, no? Not even a world. It's a universe because you have colors, you have styles, you have different levels of sugars, you have a different level of extraction, and of course, the varieties come after, no? And the methods are intertwined in all these other factors. So it's, I would say it's a mess, and at the same time, it's a celebration for diversity. And Sorbara is the first one that really has all the facets, all the credentials to be on the crest of the Lambrusco resurgence because of the style and the wines that it can produce despite a changing climate.
And Sorbara, in many ways, I think, because Lambrusco is a very old variety.
Yes.
So
One of the
Lambrusco-
first, one of the most ancient variety.
And because Sorbara can't self-pollinate, so in many ways it kind of represents those wild vines to some
Yes.
degree that have been domesticated now
Exactly.
because it still needs Salamino in general to pollinate.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of the story, and I think it tells a lot about what Lambrusco is about. It's about domesticating something that was rustic, something that was needing a savoir-faire, needing a method to be harnessed in a specific way. So it needed a vision, and needed a set of actions to be taken to shape the style of Lambrusco. And I think it's amazing because you're not only talking about some specific territories, you're not only talking about specific varieties, but you, as a whole, you're talking about the style, you're talking as something that has uniqueness because it was taught and envisioned in the beginning. So yeah, I mean, the rusticity is key to Lambrusco, as you said. It is not Sorbara, an hermaphrodite variety, as most of the variety, I mean, the total of the variety we know, and therefore it needs help. But if this has been sort of maintained, domesticated, it is because somebody has seen something inside it. And that's now part of the heritage. It's a patrimony that we have, and it's about mitigating and sort of harnessing the climate change to produce a better wine instead of having such a fear for the climate change itself.
Right. Now, Grasparosa, in many ways, I think represents, again, a little bit of that wildness because the quality of the fruit and the color, everything about it seems to be like really very out there, very vibrant.
Yeah, I would say Grasparosa, a lot of everything. A lot of color, a lot of tannins, a lot of body, a lot of ripeness as well, because as opposed to even the Salamino or the Sorbara we were speaking about, the Grasparosa has darker fruit and riper fruit and more succulent, more earthier and meatier style of expression. Even on the palate, it's broader, it's fuller, and can serve to probably another range of consumers. No, it's another segment we're referring to. It's a very dark Lambrusco. It can be paired with more audacity, with even roasted meats and stuff. So it's not the regular Lambrusco. What is the regular Lambrusco, anyways? But you know, that's the point. And you know, that is the most tannic you can have, and also the southern part of the Modena province where the Grasparosa finds its classic area, the Castelvetro area, where is also Ferrari, around Maranello and Fiorano and these places there. It's an area that has an abundance of clay soils, and that helps for a variety that is already exuberant to be even more denser and more powerful.
Absolutely. Now, with respect to Salamino, in many ways, I think the wine that best represents Salamino is probably the Bericino the Concerto, which doesn't even have
Salamino mention.
on the label. But so give us a little indication in terms of the typical character that you find for Salamino.
Okay, so we've been speaking about the Sorbara as being the lightest, the crunchiest, and the highest in acidity, and as opposed to the Grasparosa being the boldest, the darkest, and a bit more, the most tannic, and as well as the lowest acidity. So think about Salamino as being halfway between Sorbara and Grasparosa. And that's the key of sort of envisioning Salamino in a glass. But it's, before we talk about Salamino in a glass, it's easy to talk about the name, no? Why salami, you know? So it's the shape, the conical and enlarged shape of the bunch that really let people say, that is a Salamino. It's like salami, no? It pairs well with cold cuts.
Exactly, absolutely.
And that's, everything comes, you know, as a closed circle. And yeah, the style of a Salamino, it's a bit, I would say, lighter as opposed to the Grasparosa one, but still dark, still salty as a Sorbara. The fruit is going to be a mixed range of small forest fruit, more on the red range of spectrum, but also some more blackberry undertones and a touch of very pleasant herbaceousness that really sustains the wine in the phenolic aspect, you know, and confines the shape of the wine and makes it more direct compared to a Grasparosa that is wider but less disciplinate in your palate. And also it's richer than a Sorbara that is more onto that angular character. So that's, and when you go in the Reggio Emilia province and you have 100% Salamino that states Reggiano, like the Concerto, and that is the classic style. I mean, we have in now people from Mexico, from Brazil, everybody knows Medici Hermete. Everybody knows and buys, which is more important, as people from the press, people in the know, they buy the Concerto because they know Concerto is a brand on its own, doesn't need the Salamino, the Sorbara thing itself. It's a Reggiano, yes, but it's his own style. And that's the way I see Lambrusco going. So people realizing they have their maison style. No? It's a wine of method, okay? You sort of cross method with terroirs and varieties and styles. You have everything that makes the mix for a specific winery to be communicated. So I see Lambrusco much more individualized in the near future.
Fantastic. You know, one of the things I think that is so interesting with Lambrusco is it actually has the ability to almost transcend in terms of the type of consumer because of its ability to pair with so many different types of food. It has that accessibility. It's still a well-made wine, yes. So it shows that a wine can be fun and accessible and versatile, and it doesn't necessarily have to be taken seriously. And I think that's one of the things what we find in North America, why people are, I think, really gravitating towards it. How has the attitude towards Lambrusco changed in Italy?
Okay, what you're saying is really, I think, a hot topic nowadays because we need to have drinkability, especially with red wines, which bubbles also add a lot to it. I mean, we've seen even if you're looking at macro data, you see a decline which is steady since a decade of red wines. You've seen, you know, white wines that staying pretty much at the same level, more or less, but then you see bubbles peaking, and you know there's no much red bubbles. Lambrusco is the red bubbles. I can think only about sparkling Shiraz. It's a more limited phenomenon. It's higher in alcohol. It's a bit more extract. And Lambrusco has accessibility. It has a versatility, and also has some specificity to it that can enthuse both the people in the know and the ones that are really coming to Lambrusco. I think there is a sort of bias most of the time. You find out with a lot of people that have been hearing about Lambrusco as a very green and harsh and tannic wine and very inconsistent in quality and everything, because they have been hearing histories. It had been a style of Lambrusco, or a moment when Lambrusco used to be more of a beverage as opposed to a serious wine. And this time has gone. And that's the reason we need to rediscover Lambrusco. And what happened in Italy? I think Emilia-Romagna is key to generating interest around the Lambrusco styles. Because when you go to Emilia-Romagna, everything is Lambrusco driven. You go and you have your cappelletti or your tortellini and a glass of Lambrusco. Or you have an aperitif, different styles of Lambrusco inside, why not? And everything rotates around Lambrusco and bubbles. So it's something that has been revitalized, and I think also thanks to the fact that people Gen Z, more younger people, they're looking to something that is more, definite and distinctive, and therefore they're looking to stranger styles or macerated skin contact, orange as you want to call it, and strange stuff, and pet nuts. And you have already Lambrusco, and there are new producers that are actually, I don't want to say Gen Z, but between Gen Z and millennials, and they established new wineries because they find a very dynamic region, a lot of growers, yes, but they're getting older, and therefore there is that need and opportunity to create more space for these growers, to have a bigger average area, and to have a more relevant people to arrive on the market to generate interest. And that is pretty much what happened to Italy. And so Lambrusco is more diffused because also of the ancestral method and the traditional method that really had a spike in production and can be served at restaurants which are not in the region. That's important.
So with this event, this is intended to become something that...
Stable.
Absolutely.
Stable.
So in terms of the global outlook, in terms of what is the intent, because there's a lot of Lambrusco that is produced.
Yes.
And as you're saying, 60% is
Exported, yes.
And I'm assuming that the intent is to increase those exports.
Yeah, I think it would be, it's nice because there are not many Italian wines that are 40% consumed domestically. With these numbers, there's no wine. Because if you think 180 million from time to time, 150 million bottles, 750 ml, it's a good consumption. It's a wine that rotates pretty well. But yeah, I think more than having to just raise the percentage of the exported wine, I think the work that the consortium is doing now is willing to penetrate better a wider range of markets. Talking about Mexico, talking about Brazil, talking about Asia, that really pairs well with Lambrusco. If they want to pair, if they don't want, no worries, because it's a wine that goes very well on its own. Or I always say a wine that is best enjoyed as his own, with great company,
Absolutely.
So that is the thing, and I think the focus is making Lambrusco, I don't want to say great again, but relevant in the area of drinkable, versatile, and approachable wines, but still have a great legitimation around the world of people that are in the know.
Absolutely. And I think Lambrusco actually has the ability to be a great ambassador for Italy, Italian wine, Italian culture, and when I always drink Lambrusco, I always end up smiling uncontrollably because it really is a pleasurable wine. And really, I mean, I think that ultimately is what we all want.
Yeah.
Is we want people to enjoy because it's part of, yeah, that's part of the lifestyle is the enjoyment. And sometimes you don't want to think too much, and then sometimes you do. And Lambrusco, I think, gives that ability to do all aspects of wine, and I think that's one of the absolute beauties of it.
Totally.
Gabriele, grazie.
Grazie.